Hey everyone, Two Scoops here. Today, we're going to build an application together that allows you to take spoken word audio and essentially upscale it to make it sound like it was recorded in a professional podcast studio, or at least some approximation of that. You might want to do this if you have an inexpensive microphone. I'm just using my phone here today, or maybe you have a noisy audio source. This video actually is going to be a proof of concept of the application that we're building. All the audio is going to be recorded with my phone, and then it's going to be processed through this application. Before I get too annoyed, I'm going to show you something here. This whole time that I've been recording, Crab Rave has been playing. We're going to turn that off. I don't think I'd be able to do the video while that was running. So, what is the inspiration for this application? The inspiration is the Adobe AI-powered Audio Enhance podcast utility. So let's check it out here. Go to Enhance Speech. This is a cool application. It's cool that Adobe provides this. This is something that is just, you can drag and drop an audio file, and it will take it, once again, from a phone, some low-quality source, and it will upscale it, and it will make it sound high quality. It's really cool that Adobe provides this, so major props to them for delivering this product. However, there are problems with this. This is a proprietary product. There's no sliders. You can't change any settings here unless you pay for the premium version. I don't know what it costs them to run this. They could turn this off tomorrow if they wanted to. I don't know if they will, but it's a possibility. You don't know what they're doing with your audio files. They could be using it, saving it, using it for model training in the future. I don't know if they are doing that. In fact, I don't think they are doing it, but a lot of companies out there are. So it would be great to have our own application that we made ourselves that runs on our computer that accomplishes this task. And the reason I wanted to show you the Crab Rave thing is that we're actually going to do one better than this Adobe product. As of making this video, it does not do noise removal like that. In order to accomplish this, of course, we're going to be relying upon high quality, open source projects that are doing all the heavy lifting for us. And let's outline some project goals. I don't want this to just be a Python script that only coders are able to use. When we're done, I want this to feel like an actual piece of software, something that is portable. That's maybe an arguable problem with the Python ecosystem right now, that creating portable applications is somewhat challenging. So we want it to be portable. We want it to be usable by your average user. So we're going to accomplish all that today. Let's hop on in. The project that we're going to rely on most is called Resemble Enhance. This is actually a specific fork of Resemble Enhance to get it running on Windows. We are making a Windows application today, since most users are on Windows. You could follow the same process, and you could pretty easily make this for Mac OS or Linux. You'd have to do some modifications, but nothing of what I'm showing you here today is exclusive to Windows, except for a couple tiny details. So let's just dive right on in, and what we're going to do it the caveman way today. There's sometimes a good way to do things and an easy way to do things. We're taking the easy way for a few shortcuts here today. So just go to this repo and just download the zip file. I have that done already. And then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to create a fresh and clean Python virtual environment. You don't have to. It's not essential. I always like to work with virtual environments when I can. I like PyCharm, so you'll see me using PyCharm today. Maybe you use VS Code or whatever IDE you prefer. I'm going to be creating a virtual environment with PyCharm today. So let's see here. This is going to be a little bit of a copy and paste along, by the way. I don't think it's worth your time to watch me typing all this in. I have this done already. It'll all be on my GitHub. You can see, I'm going to show you how to build it though. Okay. Here's our fresh, new virtual environment. I want to get that Resemble Enhance project in here. And by the way, tons of credit to both Resemble Enhance for the project they created And then as well as this GitHub user for making it work on Windows. They did a lot of heavy lifting there. So let's extract this. There we go. And we're going to get a little crazy here. We're going to go into that folder. We're just going to cut the contents of it. We're going to paste it right into the root of our directory. This is not an elegant way to do things, but it'll get the job done for us today. Let me make sure I'm not deleting the wrong folder. Great. Okay. Very good. So we are going to want to look at app.py. That is important. Oh, excuse me. There we go. We're going to want to look at app.py and then deepseed installer.py. So right off the bat, we are going to install some requirements. So let me do this Microsoft Defender thing because it gets insanely slow if I don't do that. There we go. Okay. Let's go ahead and let's install these requirements. So in the terminal, once you have that all extracted into the root of your directory, just pip install -r requirements.txt. This is going to take a little while to install. While it does, let me just go over a really quick thing, a geeky thing that I like to talk about. I like how this author did his or her requirements. They did them with equal signs, as you can see. When you're doing that, you are maximizing for compatibility. A lot of these machine learning libraries are relatively immature or being changed very quickly. As such, the functions and the arguments they take change. And if you're not using the exact same version they were using, you might have a problem. It might not work. Now, you can also argue, though, that you're probably seeing requirements with a greater than or equal sign style. When you're doing that, in my opinion, you are maximizing for security, which is very reasonable. Especially with mature libraries, it's unlikely to break compatibility. And as cybersecurity vulnerabilities are identified, they often get patched out, at least with actively maintained libraries. I still think for this, we're just making an app for ourselves. We're not going to be distributing it to end users. Doing it with these equal signs is a very reasonable way to go. So let's all just hang out while this installs. Okay, actually, while those dependencies install, let's do a little tour of app.py, because this is where we are going to be spending most of our time. So, of course, we import our requirements. This is built upon PyTorch, which is, of course, one of the most popular deep learning libraries available for the Python ecosystem. So we don't care too much about these, just kind of trust these are well done. Here is _fn, so function. This is kind of the meat and potatoes. This is the function that's doing the main heavy lifting for this application. We're going to be making one change to this function. Oh, we're done installing already. Here is main. What this is, by default, this is a Gradio application. Gradio is a really cool Python library that allows you to create web applications relatively easily. So it's got cool widgets. You can run it locally. We're not going to do that today. I don't like running a web application locally routinely. I want this to be something that's kind of self-contained, that doesn't rely on launching a web browser to be used. So we're actually going to use tk-enter today. It has its downsides, don't get me wrong, but it's useful for us to kind of poke through this and use this Gradio app as inspiration for what we're going to be doing. Okay, very good. So all of those dependencies were installed. We need to do one more thing to get this working on Windows. Pop over to this deepseed installer.py. It'll be over here. So you can double click on that. You will see whoever made that library did a lot of high quality work. We don't need to worry about this too much. Just run this. This is going to install deepseed in such a way that can be run in a Windows environment. And while that installs, I'm also going to talk a little bit about one more dependency that you might want. By default, this is going to work just fine with WAV files. However, it's very likely you're going to be dealing with, if you're using an iPhone like me, M4A files or MP3s. We're going to need a library that can convert those to WAVs. I'm going to recommend FFmpeg. This is a very high quality library. It does a really good job. It is open source. It is under the GPL license, which not a big deal. That doesn't mean you can't use it. That doesn't even mean you can't make a commercial product using it. However, it does mean if you're distributing your application, you need to be aware of the restrictions on that license. For a good example, in the audio world, Audacity is kind of the free, good audio editor. You can look into how they handle FFmpeg. They have an easy way to point users how to download it. We're not going to worry about that today. What we're going to do today is we are going to download FFmpeg. I like this Codex FFmpeg webpage. You're going to want, for our Windows environment, what do we want here? Yes, we want FFmpeg release essentials.zip. And then, like true nerds, I love it, SHA-256 hash, so you can download it, you can check that. Nice to ensure security. So I downloaded that, and I put that into the root directory of the project that we are working on. Here it is, the zip that I downloaded. Just extract this. Great. And the files that we're going to need, we click in here and in here in bin. There are these executables. Just copy these. Paste these into the root directory. When you do this, your application is going to be able to find those executables. If you upload a MP3 or an M4A file, it will automatically convert it to a WAV with a, we're going to add one function into this. Okay, guys, we are getting somewhere. So what we're going to do, we can close this installer. We can close these requirements. What we're going to do, we're going to keep this main around as a reference, but we actually don't need it. We're not going to be using this. We're going to be using TKEnter today to build a self-contained desktop application. Now, TKEnter it looks like Windows 95. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It doesn't look very good. There is maybe a little bit of a resurgence of kind of retro styling in tech right now, so I actually don't mind TKEnter. I know I'm in the minority with that. What you can use, let me just pull it up here. There are libraries that allow you to make it look a little better. So custom TKEnter, excuse me here, custom TKEnter, there we go, is a Python library that can basically replace all of the widgets and everything that TKEnter provides with something that looks a little more modern. It maybe looks like Windows 10. So rather than your application looking 30 years old, it only looks about 8 years old. Great library. We're not going to use it today in an effort to minimize dependencies, but it would be very straightforward to take this and use it in this application, and it would look better. So, okay, guys, what let's do, I am going to pop over. You will have this, access to this on my GitHub. But this is my app.py. This is what we want in the end. There are a couple things that we're going to need to do. Right off the bat, before we forget anything, let's look at our dependencies. We'll get into this later. When you deploy something on Windows with PyTorch, I have found you always need this. So let's put this at the top of our project. We don't need Gradio. Let's get rid of that. Boom. Okay, what else do we need? We're going to need TKEnter. We're going to need a file dialog. We're also going to need TTK. This is, TKEnter is of course part of the Python standard library. TTK is basically going to give us access to a progress bar. There's a weird history there with like TickleTeek and stuff. I don't know. Basically, you need to import this if you want a progress bar. You know what? Let's just do all this as well. We're going to be threading this application, and we are going to use something called audio segments. So let's just get these out of the way here. Just trust that these imports are important. Okay, let's head over here. The point of this video is not to show you how a tkinter application works. So I am not going to go over every single thing with you. If you have any experience with Python, you can very easily go through this line by line and figure out what each of these are. Essentially, all of these lines instantiate different widgets in tkinter. My computer is dying here. There we go. Okay. I'll go over the big picture stuff with you guys though. Okay. So the way a tkinter app is formatted is it's a loop. So root equals tk dot capital TK parentheses. We're giving it a title. We are doing 800 by 600, old school sizes. We are creating all these different widgets and everything. And then root.main loop. So the whole tkinter application lives inside of this. So let's take a look at that. I am going to, just for simplicity's sake, these are functions that we have not yet created. So I'm going to kind of cheat here. I just want to show you what this tkinter app looks like. You are going to be more than capable on your own of stepping through this if you're curious, figuring out what each of these different lines really mean. It's very intuitive once you kind of step through it. Not worth your time for me to go over it with you. Okay, so I think that'll work. I just got rid of some buttons calling functions we haven't created yet. Let's take a look. So let's run app.py and see what we're looking at here. See what we're working with. Very good. Doesn't look like much. This is going to be our application though. So we're going to have a file dialog selector. We don't have that yet, but this is going to open up a dialog to let us import a file. Submit is going to start it. We have a progress bar, and then we have different sliders here. I am actually, for this temperature, I'm actually going to make a change from what I had before. Where is this? The resolution, I'm going to make it 0.01. I want it to be a little more granular there. Okay, so what let's do now, let's start. These are the lines that I created just to show you that tkinter app, so you kind of could follow along. We have that. There is one more. Where is that? There we go. Get rid of this. Okay, so in this app, I have a threading submit and I have an upload file. Let's do upload file. So we'll pop into my previous project here. Let's look at my upload file function. Very straightforward. We'll copy that. We're going to want to make sure that this is before the tkinter application. Okay, so let's walk through it. What does this do? Very straightforward. It takes this global variable file path. It is going to open a file dialog box, and it's going to search for audio files. We have these predefined extensions, WAV, MP3, FLAC, AAC, M4A. That's probably going to cover the most of your use cases. However, you can add more extensions there if you feel that that's necessary. So let's actually see if this will run. It might not because of that other method. It will, great. Nope, it won't. You know, that's okay. We'll look at a few things at the same time. Here is my submit function. This is doing a lot of work for us here. So what I'm going to do, I have the least ergonomic setup ever here, by the way. Okay, grab this, put this right in front of that file path argument that we just made. There we go. Okay, so what is this submit function going to do? This is going to take in a file path that we provide to it through that file dialog. It is going to then take arguments based on those sliders from the tkinter application, and it is going to hand it to that main function that the Resemble Enhance third-party, wonderful open source library already provides to us. And what it's going to do is it is going to produce two WAV files in the same directory as our original WAV file. One is going to be just denoised. One is also going to be enhanced. Okay, we are getting there. What we're also going to need, if we were to just run that, it would work just fine, but the application would hang up. We'd hit submit, and then it would just stop until it was done processing. This takes a while. It takes a long time. This is an inexpensive laptop I'm using, but on my more powerful desktop, it's about a 2-to-1 ratio in terms of how long it takes to process versus how long was the original audio. So it's a non-trivial amount of time, especially for a long video like this. This might end up being a long video. So we want it to be threaded. Threading is easy. Well, simple threading is easy in Python. So let's just put this right after our submit function. We're going to have a threading submit function. Very good. We need to make one more small change. Gradio, by default, when you upload audio into Gradio, it does some magic behind the scenes and it can convert files. Remember that whole thing I said about FFmpeg? We're going to implement that right now. So we need a little function that can convert. Where is that? Oh, whoops, it is not in here yet. It is in my other file. There we go. Convert to WAV. One thing that's a little janky, this is going to create a temporary WAV file in the root directory of the application. That will be important and matter later. Our laziness right now will pay for it on the back end, but it's fine. So copy this. This can go anywhere. Let's just put it up here right before function. Perfect. Now, the only thing we need to do is we need to insert some lines right here. There we go. Okay, we're going to put it right here. Convert audio to WAV format using our function we created there. That's going to use FFmpeg to do that. And then we're going to change this to temp WAV path. Okay, folks. Let's load this up here. Hopefully it launches. It does. These are reasonable defaults, by the way. I found 128 and 0.4 to be useful in almost all situations. We can kind of go over these quick. Chunk seconds. It is going to evaluate your audio in chunks. 10 I have found to be reasonable, especially for lower RAM situations. Chunk overlap is how much do those chunks overlap. The bigger the overlap, very generally speaking, you might have some higher quality. However, that means you're going to be processing that overlap twice. So it is going to slow down your processing. Number of function evaluations is basically a quality versus time decision you're making. I always just want the highest quality. So 128, you can change it and it will substantially reduce the computation times. Temperature, very generally speaking, huge broad stroke statement in machine learning. 0.5 is just kind of a decent starting point for this. With LLMs, you've maybe run into this. I found 0.4 with my voice, with my microphone to be pretty good. It will be variable for you. So you'll want to, if you're building this app, have like a 10-second piece of audio and experiment with this. And then denoise is just if you have a lot of noise in the background, hums, sirens, try the denoise. You can turn that on or off. It's just a Boolean true or false variable. So let's select an audio file. It does pop up. Let me grab, I don't even remember what these are. Let's grab this and then let's hit submit. Very good. First time you do this is very important. It will download the Resemble Enhance model. It's a pickle file. This, at least I think it's a pickle file, or it's a .pt file. It's about 680 megabytes. That's going to be important. You could get it from Hugging Face as well, but just the library itself checks for it, and if it's not there, it downloads it. So that's what's happening right now. And things are processing, guys. This is working. We're not going to do this. It's not worth anyone's time to run through this right now. We can just know that it is working. So let's close this and let's close that. Okay. So we have it running in Python. It's doing what we need it to do. How do we take that and turn it into some actual software that people can use? We are going to use PyInstaller. So terminal, pip, install PyInstaller. This is one of the biggest complaints in my experience about Python is that making portable applications in Python can be challenging. I think PyInstaller is maybe a little underrated. It does do a good job, but you'll see there's some jankiness. So what we're going to do, pyi-make spec app.py. We're going to want --one dir, so one directory. Bam. And then we're going to do app or PyInstaller app. We want the spec file. Run that. This is going to take a while. What it's going to do is it is going to attempt to find all of the libraries that your application depends upon, package them all into a nice little folder, it's going to also bolt on the Python interpreter into a Windows executable, and it's going to make something that can run ideally on any Windows machine without needing to have Python, without relying upon these external dependencies because they're built into it. We're going to let that run. Okay, it finally completed. So let's take a look at what we have. Navigate to the root directory. There's going to be now a dist folder. Click into that. There's an app. We have app.exe and then internal, which includes what PyInstaller thinks were all of the libraries that were required. This is so much better than prior versions of PyInstaller. It used to just have the executable in kind of this messy directory with all of those. I love that it creates this internal folder. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not even going to run this. It made some mistakes. What I'm going to recommend you do is open up 2 Windows Explorer tabs. Now, what you could do, say you're doing a similar project to this with PyInstaller. You could run that executable. A terminal window is going to pop up and yell at you and tell you what library you're missing. It's kind of janky. This is not great, but you can dump the library you're missing into the internal folder. So I'm going to tell you right now, we're going to go into dist on this side, app, internal, and then on this side, we're going to go into the virtual environment, lib, site packages. We need deepseed. So just copy that in. This is janky. This is messy. There's probably a lot in the deepseed folder that we don't need. We are erring on the side of compatibility. We just want it to run. And then there is going to be, if you go up to the top here, Resemble Enhance. This contains the machine learning model. You want this in the internal folder as well. So paste that in. Last but not least, go up to app.exe. you're going to want these executables, ffprobe and ffmpeg and ffplay. Copy those in. Okay, let's launch it, see what happens, guys. We could remove that terminal. You can do, I believe it's -W in your PyInstaller arguments, and it will remove the terminal. We're going to leave it for this one because it has a more meaningful progress bar than the one that we included. Let's try this out. Let's grab a... Okay, it's working. Very good. I'm very happy with that. So, this might be a stopping point for you. You could take this folder, copy it, paste it, zip it up, run it on any Windows computer that you want. We're going to go one step farther today. Let me make sure this is working. Yes, it is. We are going to go one step farther today. We are going to package it into a nice installer. To do that, we're going to use inosetup. inosetup is actually what they use if you look at how when you install VS Code. I don't know. I think they use inosetup to package VS Code. Also, the Microsoft Azure Storage Explorer. I think they package that with this as well. So this is a well-regarded tool. It's old school, but it's really good. So create a new script. Application name, audio _ enhancer. Version 1.0. Company, I'm going to type bench 7. And then let's go next. Program files is fine. You need to browse to the executable that we just created. So, yours will be different, but navigate, to me it's PyCharm, Audio Enhance 4 for me, dist, and then it's in the app folder. So app.exe, great. You're also going to want to add a folder. You are going to want to add the app folder, the folder that contains the executable. PyCharm projects, Speech Enhance 4, dist, app. Perfect. Okay. Should the files and subfolders be included? Yes. We do not need to associate a file type. Create a shortcut, great. We're not having licenses today. You're going to want to do non-administrative install mode and ask the user to choose the install mode at startup. I'm going to hit next, and then you choose the compiler output. I'm going to go over that quick, though. I do this a lot, so I literally have an ino output folder on my desktop. You can do it anywhere. You can do a custom icon. We're going to use the default today. Okay, let that run. So, one concession we made, there is going to be a temporary file written to the root directory. This is going to install the application into the app data folder, which is similar to what VS Code does. If you install it in the programs file directory, which you can do that with this installer, you can right click, run as admin, install for all users. You'll then get an error at runtime because programs in Windows are not allowed to write to their own directory in program files. We could change that if we weren't so lazy. There's much better ways to handle temporary files than what we did. We just did this to keep things just dead simple. As this compiles, let's talk about the app ID. Say you want to make this something, if you're giving it to users, that needs to be updated. I can show you how to do that maybe in a future video. It's easy to do with the inosetup installer. You're going to want to write down or save that app ID because every time the installer executes, it's going to search for that app ID. And if it is different, it's going to install it to a new directory. The user will then have 2 copies, the old version and the new version of your software. If you have the same app ID, it will overwrite to that directory. So you're almost certainly going to want to use that same app ID. And here we go. When that is all said and done, guys, you are going to have a installer, a Windows executable. You can double click on that. This is one I made earlier just for the sake of brevity. And it is going to be a very familiar Windows installation experience. Old school, but very well done. I don't know the CD picture makes me laugh. I don't know the last time that I have installed with the CD. The compression is very good. If you remember, we have tons of dependencies. The machine learning model itself is 680 megabytes. So for 819 for what we just built, I think that's actually a reasonable size. Arguably, some of you might cringe at that. But in the end, guys, I hope you learned something. I know I did making this video. After all, we're all just on this journey trying to learn to code together. I think this is a very practical application. It allows anyone to use a phone in a noisy environment and have some approximation of a professional quality podcast microphone. If you disagree, if you don't like the quality of the output, make sure to dislike this video, unsubscribe, and trash me in the comments. But until next time, thank you for watching, and I hope you have a great day.